providers for the outcomes that they do, not just for the services that they provide. And so we're really excited to get going on that. Finally, budget. Budget, I always tell people, because you heard I was a budget analyst at one time, budget is art and science. Those of you that do budget know that it's not just like accounting and numbers, it's really the manifestation of what your policy direction is as an entity or as a government. So you have in front of you, it's not a pie chart this year, it actually shows you where the money goes in Marion County. Our total adopted budget for the current year is about $371 million. That's all funds. But our general fund, that's the discretionary fund, is just over $82 million. So most of our monies are actually dedicated to certain purposes, whether that be Medicaid for health services, solid waste for the program that Sam talked about, road fund. So those are some of our large funds. Of that discretionary money, of that $82.4 million, 78% goes to public safety. So when you think of budget as being a manifestation of priorities, you can see where the priority of this Board of Commissioners has been over the years that we spend that large a share of our budget on public safety. Much is in flux. The legislature is in town, as you know. We work with the legislature very much in terms of connections to our revenue sources. So I just made a short list of which of our programs are related to legislative decisions: community corrections, economic development, mental health, public health, assessment and taxation, juvenile services, justice courts, transportation, county fair, parks, children and families, district attorney, and OSU Extension, which you heard about. And that is a partnership between the Oregon State University and Marion County. I wanted to tag on to what Kevin said about that. We provide about $350,000 a year. The lion's share that goes to OSU Extension comes from state and federal sources. The state and federal sources have decreased their budgets over the last 10 years, and they have lost positions in OSU Extension. But we in the county have not decreased our budget, and we're committed to continue helping support them in both this levy that they're working on and in the contribution that we make to them. And we have committed to help pay their lease costs, I think, for at least 3 years during the transition. So don't want anyone to leave thinking that we're offloading OSU Extension from the county in this levy situation. So anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with my fellow commissioners. I thank you for hosting us today, and we are open for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all three of you. Really appreciate all your effort to prepare and your willingness to take questions. So Jolene, raise your hand. Jolene is out in the audience with a microphone. Do any of you have some questions for the commissioners?
Well, then I'll continue what I wanted to say.
Okay, I'll let Sam do that. And Sam, after you continue what you want to say, tell us a little bit about rural economic development. I'm curious what you all see is the future for some of these smaller communities who are really seeing a lot of growth, like Donald, Aurora, Silverton. So, after you.
Well, I will. I don't think it came up, but one of the fun things we're working on is that we, about 15, 20 years ago, Opal Creek Wilderness, and it was, well, when you make something wilderness, you take it out of production, take it out of access. So the trade-off was that the federal government would be providing the East Canyon with about $15 million worth of grants, economic development. And then a lot of things happened. Senator Hatfield was carrying it, and he retires. 9/11 happens. It's not important anymore, and it just kind of gets left off. So in the last year, the question came up in a meeting we had in the East County, where's that money at? And so we've looked into it. And what it took at the time was an economic study to be done, and that was done, and the governor needed to sign off. It needed to sign off on it. So we've, through the Council of Government, some of them are here, we did a new economic study just this last week. We took a paper in asking for the governor's signature. And you heard the two commissioners were in Washington, and I worked on it the prior year too, trying to get some of this restarted. So I just have to tell you that the opportunity is there. There'll be a meeting coming up, I think it's April 7th, for the communities to talk about what they need. But it's one of the real good shots to brighten up this area, and we're pretty excited about it.
Teresa, that was a good question. I'm going to focus on the canyon. I think you said Silverton and Donald and Aurora, and obviously I spent a lot of time up at the Aurora Airport with the PAM and the business people up there, and I keep reminding, because the city of Wilsonville represents the Aurora Airport, and I keep reminding them it's in Marion County, not across the road. But one of the things that all the commissioners are working on, they got started way before I did, is this canyon project. And when you go up to Detroit or Gates, they don't have a sewer system. Their water systems are over 50 years old. They're leaking water. And there's the perfect storm that's been set up. And Commissioner Carlson and I were back with our lobby team in Washington, D.C., talking about the Opal Creek $15 million promise that never came through. And we all know in this room you're not going to get an earmark for $15 million for the canyon. But we're using that as leverage as we put together this plan. And we have April 7th. We have a big, well, it's not going to be big, but it's going to be federal delegation, state regional solutions people there, our offices, county offices, and then local leaders will be up. We've invited all our congressional delegation. We don't know if any of them will show up to just say hi. But we're literally going to be working on projects in each one of those small communities. And we are, I use the word facilitators, and Commissioner Carlson says, no, we're the doers. We're actually going to have our staff drive those projects up in that canyon. And I wrote on the board the other day, we can't wait 10 years, or we can't have a long-term plan. There's certain people up there that need a WIN. And if we don't get a win for them, I think the hope will just go right down the tube. So that's what we're really focused on, is where can we make an impact here in the next year or two with some project up in the canyon. Does that help?
Yep, let me add something to it. So just in addition to everything that's been said, there's a lot of discussion around the nation about what's the role of government with economic development. Does government create jobs, or are public sector jobs even, growing the economy? There's kind of that feeling there. Then the other side of the equation is that government should just get out of the way. We have lottery money. Does that have any influence? And I think I'm becoming more and more convinced that the preeminent role of government in economic development is infrastructure. There is one thing the private sector cannot do, and they cannot put in water systems, they can't put in sewer systems, they don't put in the roads and highways and bridges and the things that Sam talked about. And so I think no matter whether it's the canyon or elsewhere, and a lot of the projects that we saw on the canyon list were water systems, sewer systems. Broadband is another one that they're very interested in, because they can't get a solid internet connection out there, and you know how important that is for business. So I think we're going to be really looking at how can we bring that as Marion County and help all of those smaller communities across the county in that regard.
Yeah, I only get one shot, Sam says. Well, I'm taking two. I'm the new guy, so I get away with it. I'm always in trouble. If you didn't know this about me, I'm always in trouble in the office. They come into my office, and now what did I do wrong? The other thing I would add to that is the EDAB board, who's going to meet this afternoon, they do focus on, if you remember that slide, there's about $200,000 a year of the $1 million in lottery funds that goes into grants for job creation. And so those types of places like Aurora and Silverton, where companies, and we're focused on existing companies that are here that can expand or potentially are going to lose a job, and we award those grants. And we just went through grant awards, and we'll be getting ready to send those next grant applications are going to go out probably in a month or two. For the next year, for next fiscal year. So we do some of that as well for existing businesses. And then Nick's here someplace. Harville, raise your, yeah, Nick's way back there. We're supporting Nick and a lot of the chambers in the business retention and expansion surveys that we're going through right now, listening to business, trying to find out what it is businesses really need so that we can focus on the silos. For example, our ag business here is huge, and that's part of our economic issue, is that you've got agricultural business, not real high-paying jobs, but when you put in a GK Machines in Aurora that's producing, hundreds of $50,000 plus year jobs, you start to build silos in ag business that can really expand our economy, keep the production here, keep the supply here, and so that's what we're trying to work on as well with SEDCOR.
Other questions?
I only went twice. So
All right. Oh, got a question. He always has questions.
Tammy says it's my job.
It is your job, Ed. Thank you. While they're walking over here, I was remiss in not making sure all the audience knows how much SEDCOR is not just a partner with Kevin being on our board and the commissioners here today, but they are one of our key funding partners for SEDCOR. And for that, and maybe I forget because we work so closely together every day but I really want to call that out and the importance of that support that we get from SEDCOR. So thank you. Or from the county for SEDCOR, so thank you.
Which is your tax dollars, by the way.
Thank you. My question has to do with the move back into the building. And there was some comment about during the process of being out of the building elsewhere, some services may have benefited from being closer to the people they serve. Were there any of the departments or divisions that stayed where they had been because of that?
Well, I don't know if I heard that, Ed, that people benefit. The one that comes to mind is Public Works. We pretty well, in terms of anybody trying to get a building permit or do any development, just about all the planning, buildings, permitting services are all out on Silverton Road, and we left them there. One that hurts me, and different than you might think, is planning. We haven't had a lot of land use issues in the last couple of years, but when we do, I sure like having them right close so I can go in and get a little tutorial prior to the hearing or whatever the question is, and they're still out at Public Works, so I'd kind of like to get them back. But other than that, everybody's out there, and I think I see Rich here nodding. Those that do in the construction business like having everybody in one place. The rest of them, I don't think it worked out at all. I use the example, legal counsel Gloria Roy's here, just like Kevin. Before the Courthouse Square problem, I'd probably be in legal counsel once a week, and I'm not making this up. And same question, am I in trouble yet? And then 2 years goes on, and they're out on 13th Street. Well, you got computer and telephone and everything, FaceTime, everything else. But if they're not there, you don't take advantage of them the same way. And I really felt like then we weren't getting what we're paying for. Not your fault. They always are wonderful. But I didn't have access to them. So that's what I'm happy about getting. You need somebody, you know where they are, and you go get them. It's just the way I think it needs to be.
Let me just add one more, and that's elections. So that really was part of moving back into Courthouse Square. For years, they moved out into South Salem, and they live pretty close to where I live. And the idea was we had space in Courthouse Square. The lease costs were going up out in the area that they were in. We thought that the county could save some money by consolidating and moving together. The clerk's office, the rest of the clerk's office was in the courthouse, and we moved them into Courthouse Square, so they have nicer quarters now. There was some controversy. Salem Weekly wrote some articles, and there was a little bit of grousing, some concerns about parking. We're working through those concerns. But if you think about, if any of you have taken your ballot in on the night of the election when they were out there and watched the cars back up on Southeast Commercial, I don't know if you've been there, but that area was not easy to get in and out of, and they actually moved their drop box downtown right at the courthouse, right? So now they're actually down there where that mail drop off is, right? And we've made arrangements with City of Salem, and it's working really well. But change is hard for some of the folks that have been the volunteers that have been there years and years and years. So that might be another one that you've heard about.
As somebody who worked, that'd be too easy, Ed. As somebody who worked really hard to get the DMV to open on Saturdays or nights or weekends, to serve you, we do have a municipal court that is open on Tuesday nights. So if any of the sheriff's people help you donate some revenue to the county, I just want you to know that we are open at your convenience in the evening on Tuesday nights. In fact, I took pizza out there. So.
All right. Well, unless there's another question out there in the audience, I think we've exhausted that for the day. Thank you. Again, commissioners, thank you for what you do. Thanks, Jolene, for stepping in, pinch hitting there. Reminder again, our next forum, April 8th, and Tim Dewey from University of Oregon will be there, our economic forecast. And I think that's it. Go forth, be prosperous today, and again, thank you for your support of SEDCOR.